Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, That Model Railway Guy, and welcome to a very special video where today I'll be taking a look at another exciting announcement from Hornby. So back in January we had the main Hornby announcement for their 00 gauge range, and now a few months later they're doing another announcement for the TT120 range. As you may know, I've got a new series of videos coming out where I'll be building a TT layout. In fact, I put out the trailer for that last weekend, and I'll put a link just up there for those of you that want to check it out. But yeah, since I'm in the process of building a TT layout myself, I figured I might as well cover this announcement just like I did with the 00 gauge range earlier this year. To my knowledge, I think this is the first time we've had a proper TT announcement from Hornby, at least since the initial launch of the range anyway. So it's going to be really interesting to see how much they announce and also how far in advance it is as well. When they launched the scale, they did set out their plans for the future by listing a few different phases for the range. I think most of last year was phase 1, naturally, and I think we're now in phase 2 with the HSTs that have just come out, and also the Class 50s and the Duchesses not far off either. Hornby did initially give us some teasers of what they were planning for phase 3 and phase 4 too, but we've not seen anything really sort of solid for those yet, so perhaps today will be more about giving us an update on those models rather than announcing brand new stuff. That said, I've heard that Hornby are planning on moving away from these phases, so I'm curious to whether that's just a marketing thing in that they're just not going to refer to them as phases anymore, or could it be that they've actually got different ideas about what the models are that they want to produce. So yeah, I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see what does get announced today and if any of it lines up with what we were initially told when the TT range was first launched. Now, like I said, this is the first big announcement for TT that Hornby have done, but earlier this year they did reveal some new products, albeit to hardly any fanfare at all. So it was on the 12th of January, that's what I've got listed down in my notes. They announced sound-fitted versions of the Class 50 and the Class 66, as well as a Class 08 in British Railways green. Now, I use the term announced quite loosely here because they literally just published them on their website, and that was kind of it. Which I thought was really strange, because if they'd have known that they had this event coming up in a few months' time, why not just wait and make it part of these announcements today? Yeah, it's not like any of these items are already available. The green 08, I think, isn't due out until November or something. So yeah, surely it would make more sense to reveal them as part of one big cohesive event and make the announcement look even bigger. Unless, of course, they already have so much stuff to reveal today that they felt it wasn't worth it. I think that's probably a bit optimistic. Personally, I don't think this is going to be a huge announcement. If anything, I suspect it'll give us more of an idea of what to expect with the TT range going forwards, but I do have a few little predictions because I haven't looked at the announcements yet, so let's run through those before I take a look at the range for the first time. So, predictions. First off, I think we'll see more liveries of existing models. This is probably fairly easy for Hornby to do. Things like the A4 and the A3 in particular, they're very popular, and there's loads more of those that they can choose from. They have perhaps been a little bit oversaturated within the TT range though, so perhaps Hornby might want to focus on new stuff instead, but I do think re-liveries would be just an easy thing for them to do. I think I saw someone on social media suggesting an HST in the LNER livery, the modern one that is, and that would be really good fun and good for modern image modelers as well. Speaking of the HSTs, there was a rumour, or rather a link that was posted to a page on the Hornby website that was taken down very quickly of an HST starter set. Again, that sounds like it could be a very good bet, especially as those models seem to have been received very well, the HSTs that is, and the Mark IIIs of course as well. Another potential starter set of course would be a goods train with the Class 08. Honestly, I thought they were going to do a green 08 with that, and that's how you would get a green 08 if that's what you wanted, but as we already know, that's being released as an individual model, so yeah, perhaps not on that one. My biggest prediction though, and one that I think a lot of TT modelers share and are also desperate for, is a small tank engine. Now, the general consensus seems to be that this will be an 060 of some sort. I believe that Hornby originally stated they were planning to make both a J94 Austerity and a Pannier tank at some point in the future, so it seems like one of those would make the most sense. Out of those two, I would personally lean more towards the J94 since it would go well with the A4s and the A3s. And there's lots of variety with the liveries for both the LNER and British Railways versions, but also some nice colourful industrial colour schemes as well, which, I think that would be a good seller for Hornby. I have heard some talk about a Ginty as well. I'm not sure if this is just a rumour or if it was actually mentioned by Hornby, but that would be a welcome addition too. There was also a Class 47, a Class 37 and a Class 31, I think, off the top of my head. I'm not entirely sure on all of those. But they were mentioned in the initial launch as being something a bit further down the line. So perhaps we'll get some more news on one of those. And things like the 9F, I think, was in there as well. And a Black 5 as well. There was loads of stuff that they sort of announced. And so hopefully we'll get some more info on some of those things. So although going back to the Class 37s and the 31s and the 47 as well, I think with just a few other diesels on the horizon with the Class 50 and the Class 66, Hornby might want to focus a little bit more on steam now, especially with the HSTs having just come out as well. In terms of rolling stock, it's probably a bit much, but I would personally love to see some LNER teaks in TT. Those coaches were really, really popular in 00 for Hornby, and so it would be great to have these scaled down to TT to run with the LNER locos that they've already got. I always thought it was a bit odd that they made the Pullman coaches to go in the Scotsman set, so LNER coaches would be really nice. To sort of go all out, really pie in the sky thinking though, a DMU of some sort would be fantastic, like a first generation DMU. There's been no indication that they're working on anything like that, but I just personally think that would be amazing, and I think it would work really well in TT. Or maybe if we really dream a bit, modern style EMUs, a 4-unit train would look really quite impressive, but it wouldn't take as much space, so that would be a very good option for TT. The main thing, though, I think, is that we won't see anything from this announcement anytime soon. Don't get me wrong, I would love for them to reveal a new loco and say, oh, by the way, it'll be here next month. That would be fantastic. It would be amazing. But realistically, with the previously announced locos arriving in the near future, I think it'll be more like next year before anything revealed today is actually available to buy in shops and on Hornby's website. So, Anyway, those are my predictions, but I'm going to go and take a look at the actual announcement now, and let's see what Hornby has in store for us. Okay, so the big news here, and one that I think is going to please a lot of people, is the reveal of an LNER J50 tank engine. Yeah, so we did think an 060 was coming, but I hadn't seen a J50 come up anywhere, so that's a really interesting choice. The J50 was, of course, a well-received model for Hornby in the 00 gauge range a while back. I think it was nearly 10 years ago now. It definitely makes sense for them to replicate it here as well, especially as they'll probably have a lot of design work that they can reuse for the TT side of things too. Just to get through some of the details, it looks like there's 3 versions coming, an LNER livery and then both an early and a late BR version as well. These will have a 6-pin decoder. That's a little bit of a shame for those who want to use the TXS sound decoders, but it is in line with what they did with the Class 08 as well originally. So I can definitely see this one being popular though. A lot of people have been crying out for a small steam shunting locomotive. Saying that, I note that on the images here there is no front coupler, but I think in the live stream that Hornby did earlier today as well, they did say that there would be a front coupling there. So most likely this is just a mock-up using the 00 gauge version with just a TT coupler photoshopped onto the back there. At least that's what I would expect it is. This is going to be available in the autumn, so that's really good. Not too long to wait at all if that is the case. Hornby's arrival dates have been a bit optimistic in the past though, so while autumn may be the target, let's see if that actually happens. Next up, we have an HST starter set. So that little slip up from Hornby did appear to be genuine. So this seems to be the same as the other starter sets with regards to track and a controller. The HST itself is in the blue and yellow Intercity 125 livery. I think it's exactly the same as the standalone ones that you can buy rather than it being different numbers. And that also comes with 2 coaches as well. So with the dummy car at the back, that's kind of on par with the 3 coaches that you got in the Easterner and the Scotsman sets too. So good work from Hornby. A bit of a slam dunk for them really, I think. Next up, we have some new liveries for the 12-ton tanker wagons. These look really nice, and again, there's a couple of different versions there, with one in a BP livery and another in a Benzol livery as well. And yeah, these will definitely go down well with those who want a bit more variety in their freight trains. Speaking of freight trains, for the modern image modelers, we also have some 45-foot container wagons too. I can see these going really well with the upcoming Class 66s, and again, these are going to come in a variety of different versions. At a cursory glance, it appears that the wagon itself is the same on all three of these, but it's the containers that are different, with a DFDS grey one, a Hapag-Lloyd one, I hope I'm saying that right, that's in a bright yellow, and finally a Hanjin one in a sort of sky blue, so yeah, that looks really nice. And yeah, these are going to be quite big wagons for TT, and I just can't wait to see a great big huge long train of these rumbling around a layout being pulled by a Class 66. So yeah, that should be really good fun. We also have some new Pullman coaches as well. These basically appear to be the same coaches as before, but just with different names this time round. Those names are Medusa and Iolanthe. I think that I'm pronouncing that right. To be honest, I'm not completely up to date on my Greek mythology or wherever they get these names from. So yeah, anyway, good for those who want to build up their Pullman rakes, or just for those who missed out on them the first time round. Moving on to more of the accessories now, the biggest thing here is a level crossing set. This looks to be really cool actually, as it gives you the option of using different gate styles, which is a great addition, but it also looks like you can make up a double track crossing, or potentially even more, with those little clip-on pieces at the side there. It looks as though you can just remove the sleepers from the track and then clip the crossing sections in underneath. So that seems like a really good way of doing it to allow for some flexibility. So yeah, a fantastic addition from Hornby and showing a bit of innovation there. I do wonder how that will link up with those using different track systems. For example, I think the Pico track has slightly different spacing between different lines, so where obviously this is intended to work with Hornby track. So that just might be a consideration if you are planning on using this. But yeah, even if you are using the Pico track, I'm sure you can use the flexible track to just slightly nudge the distances out. So yeah, that should be fine. There's also some insulated fish plates too. Yeah, not a huge amount to say about these really, but again, great for those who need to isolate sections of their layout. Again, I used Pico ones on the TT layout that I'm building at the moment, so I think this is probably just an example of Hornby wanting to build out a sort of a complete range and make it so that everything you need is available directly from Hornby should you want to buy it from them. Finally, though, in the accessories category, the thing that I am most excited for is some of the semaphore signals. So again, Pico are working on some of these too. I think those are GWR style ones. But I have to say, these ones from Hornby look fantastic. I think these are just renders that we're looking at the moment, but I love the style of them, and there's a few different versions to choose from. So left to right, we have a standard home signal, a standard distance signal, then a junction home signal, and a distant junction signal too. It looks like these will be working signals as well, like manually operated, but if you look closely at the base, I think there is a hole just below the operating lever so that you could potentially motorize these if you wanted to. So that's very exciting. And the last thing to note as well is that we did get a mention of the Class 37, which Hornby have now sort of officially announced. I don't know if that's the right term because we already knew about it, but we've actually seen what they're working on. So yeah, they are definitely working on it now. And I guess this is going to be the next big diesel for the range. There's not a huge amount to say here. We don't have a predicted release date for this yet. And it's, yeah, like I said, it's more just to kind of show that they're working on it. There was a nice section in the Hornby video with the designer of the model, and I think he said that the design is finished and now they're just waiting on the first tooling samples to come back from the factory. So yeah, the project is moving along. They also showed off some of the CAD images too, and yeah, it's looking great. I mean, it's always hard to tell from a computer generated image, but it looks like a Class 37, so that's a good thing. But yeah, that is pretty much everything for the announcement. Like I said, there's no release date for the Class 37 yet, but it looks like everything else is due in the autumn or a little bit before in the case of the tanker wagons, I think. So that's really good. Hopefully Hornby can stick to those release dates. We know they have been a bit optimistic in the past, so I wouldn't be surprised if something like the J50 in particular slips to next year. But yeah, if they can get it out for autumn, that would be fantastic. This perhaps marks a bit of a shift in Hornby's approach to the TT range too. Rather than revealing their intention for stuff that they're going to make eventually in, a few years' time, This seems to be more about immediate models which are nearly complete and will be available fairly soon. It is a little bit of a shame that they haven't given us more of an indication of what's happening with those Phase 3 and Phase 4 projects, other than the Class 37, of course. If they only started on the 37 last November, then they probably don't have anything else to show. But yeah, I think it would just be nice to know whether those other models are still in the pipeline or not. I guess it's probably just because they don't know. But yeah, generally I think this implies that, like with the 00 gauge range, they want to move away from having these big long lead times, so that the stuff that they reveal in their announcements is actually due to arrive in the next 6 months or so. Certainly that seems to be the case with TT. Just as a side note as well, if everything from today is due to arrive in autumn, and by then we should also have the Class 50s and the Princesses out as well, I wonder if that means that we'll get another TT announcement towards the end of the year to cover the next 6 months after that. Perhaps that's wishful thinking, but yeah, not entirely out of the question if they stick to their expected release dates. So I think that's everything. A nice little range, I think. Not a huge amount to sink our teeth into, but with those other models that are due to arrive in the next few months as well, I still think it's a very good time to be a TT modeler. And it does seem like the scale is continuing to grow, which is fantastic. Let me know down in the comments what you think about this range. And like I said earlier, I have a brand new series coming out where I'll be building a TT layout myself. Episode 1 is actually available to watch right now for channel members. I'll put a link to that in the description for anyone who fancies checking that out. And yeah, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. There's going to be a lot more TT120 content coming really soon, which, believe me, you're not going to want to miss that. But yeah, in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!